So we are very happy today that we have Dr. Meenakshi with us, and she will discuss today the big physics issues that we can address with this BEL-2 facility. We are quite excited to know what is happening in BEL-2 front, and how things are going on there, because we work in neutrino physics and in many other areas, but it would be really nice that how the flavor physics area will be enriched with BEL-2 data. So just let me briefly mention about Dr. Meenakshi. So she did her PhD from IIT Madras under the supervision of Professor Jim Levy, and Jim is a very good friend of us, and there basically she worked on BEL, Clio, this kind of experiments, analyzing their data. But Meenakshi did her MSc from Utkal University, so this place is not new for her, and BSc from Regional Institute of Education in Bhubaneswar. So I can say that she is an Odia person, and we are very happy to have her here today. And she has achieved many recognition during her career, but the most importantly that she is going to join as a convener of BEL-2 Hadronic B. So I'll be excited to know from her what is this Hadronic B activity from 1st April 2022. So congratulations, Meenakshi, for your achievement, and keep going. So I wish you good luck. And so now the stage is yours. Please tell us what you have been doing these days.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your kind introduction and for accepting my request to give a talk at IOP. Thank you. So I'll talk about BEL-2 and big questions in particle physics. Can't I go to the next slide? Okay, so this is the outline of my talk. So I'll give a brief motivation to the big questions that we particle physicists are focusing, and what the flavor factories have achieved so far, and what is the necessity of a super flavor factory such as super KKB and BEL-2. And then I'll talk about my physics interest at BEL-2, then summarize. So the goal of particle physics is to understand the laws of nature at the most fundamental level. And so far we know from the standard model what are the building blocks of matter, and how they interact, and how the particles get their masses. Some of the main open questions that the answer to which we do not know, such as what is the origin of matter and lack of antimatter in the universe. And we know that flavor physics accounts for very small part of it, like standard model accounts for order of 10 to the power minus 9 of the observed matter density. And we do not know what is dark matter particle, because none of the standard model particles qualify. And we do not know what gives the neutrino their tiny masses. So one of the probable solution is having heavy neutral lepton. So the flavor factories can probe these via the precision measurement by looking for the deviation in the standard model expectation, or via direct searches of new particles beyond the standard model, and that should be reachable by the particular experiment. Okay, so far
so Meenakshi, if there are a few students, so can you explain this right side plot, this RD star plot, because
sure.
They generally don't work in this area. So if you can kindly explain for us.
Yeah, sure. So from the lepton flavor universality, with this RD star is the ratio of branching fraction of B2D star tau nu to B2D star L nu, where L is electron and muon. So we expect from the lepton flavor universality, the ratio should be should have a particular value. That is that's the standard model prediction. It should have this value, but what measurement shows that it deviates from the standard model value. That is, for example, this is the world average value. which includes the measurement from Bell, Babar, and LSCB. So far, we have this anomaly of around 3 sigma. So this is something we need very precision measurement. So there are kind of new physics possibility that can enter here and change the branching fraction value. For example, in since this is RD and this RD is the ratio of branching fraction. So B to D star tau nu, for example, for RD star or RDB to D tau nu. So this is a charged current process where it is mediated by the W boson. But in case of new physics scenario where where it can have the charged Higgs or leptoquark, which couples to both quark and lepton. So in such cases, the branching fraction of D star tau nu can get modified. So the ratio will deviate from what we expect from the standard model. So yeah, so for this we need very high precision measurement, and we need to see this anomaly with more than 5 sigma precision, so that we can further investigate to find what mass scale is contributing to such anomalies, for example.
So what is this Bell 15? This is, I can't see.
Yeah, so it's 2015.
Okay. And it includes the old world average, certainly.
Yeah.
But then what happened to Bell 9? Like, why they are so different?
Yeah, so it's not the same measurement. So there are actually various ways people are measuring. For example, there are various tagging approaches, semi-electronic or hadronic tagging for the tag side B, or full event interpretation. So with better precision, we are here right now with the Bell.
So this is the current scenario?
No, this is not so this is the current measurement. We cannot say which measurement is exactly correct. We have to average all these things. So this is the average here. We cannot say that one experimental result is correct, other is not correct.
No, I'm talking about Bell. What is the present Bell scenario?
So this is the present 2019 result.
Okay. And it has been shifted in the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And what is this LACB 2018? Oh, you mean this is 2018?
Yeah, 2018. This one. This is the latest result from SFLAB. I think it has not been, SFLAB has not been updated after that. Yeah.
And one thing, when you quote this result, this is 2 degrees of freedom result or 1 degrees of freedom result? Like, this is RD star. Yeah. So you are fitting from the same data these two parameters at the same time?
Yes. For the case of Bell and Babar, so they provide RD and RD star together. So that's why this contour represents RD star, and yeah. And for the case of LSCB, I think it's a single measurement.
Okay, yeah, because they have just a vertical line.
Yeah.
But when you fit both the two, you fit both the two at the same time using the same data set, right?
Yes, exactly.
So it should be then delta chi square, not 2.61. No, it is written delta chi square 1 contour. So it is then 1 degrees of freedom, no? Because it is written on the top, delta chi square equal to 1.
Yeah, so actually this is, so if we look at the results are separately mentioned, RD and RD stars, but with the same statistics and same methodology. So,
oh no, so I'm asking that you fit at the same time these two parameters, right? Not one at a time, no?
So this one is not done by us. This is the SFLAB group. So they take all the results from Bell, Babar, and LSCB, and then they average. Yeah. So no, I have this confusion that RD and RD star. These are basically some ratio of the branching ratio, right? Of some processes. Yes.
So I have data, and now I want to measure RD. Then I don't need to worry about RD star, or they are correlated.
No, they are not correlated. They are not correlated. They are
not correlated.
Exactly. They are not correlated.
Okay, I see. Okay, I got the point.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I should move on. And now the physics achievement of B factories. So yeah, so we know the physics program of flavor. I should not say B factories, but flavor factories, because we don't work only on B meson sector, but also charm, tau, etc. So anyway, so physics program of flavor factories is quite vast, which includes the bread and butter of bee factories or flavor factories, such as these are the bread and butter of bee factories, like measurement of rare bee decays and hadronic bee to charm decays, then the time dependent measurements, and then charm physics and CKM matrix element measurement of the CKM matrix elements. Other than that, recently, so new ideas are coming, and people are interested to do direct search that is achievable at the flavor factory. So these are the new sectors that entered to the B physics or charm physics program, such as the direct search of new physics particles that is achievable at our experiment, and search for QCD hadrons. Then people are morely working on tau physics nowadays at B factories, and these are the possible extension that can be done at future B factories such as BEL2. I mean, the current B factory such as BEL2, like Upsilon 5s physics or Upsilon 6s physics and electroweak physics. Anyway, so the physics achievement of B factories is quite vast. So it provided impressive number of discoveries and observation of rare decays, starting from the observation of CP violation in B meson system, observation of neutral current process, then finding these exotic hadrons, then evidence of the leptonic B decays B2 tau nu, then evidence of charm mixing. Most importantly, it provided the result of B factories provide, help to Kobayas and Moskva to get the 2009 Nobel Prize for their decisive confirmation of the CKM picture. And after that, after the shutdown of the experiment, still searches are going on, including the search in dark sector, and also the time reversal asymmetry, etc. Okay, so it's not good to say that B factories only include BEL and Babar. So the LSCB came late into picture after the B factories proved CP violation in B meson system. After it came, it did a great job by discovering many new composite particles and precision measurement of standard model physics parameter, and most importantly, recently, the CP violation in the charm sector. So far so good. So every factories have done quite interesting physics, but as we know that new ideas are coming in, and there are so many anomalies in the flavor sector. So hence it necessitates to go for more precision measurement by using high luminosity accelerator and very precise detectors. Here I'll talk about Super KKB and BEL2. So the BEL2 is situated at the collision point of Super KKB, is an intensity frontier flavor factory experiment, which is situated at world's highest luminosity electron positron collider at KK Tsukuba campus. It's the successor to BEL at KK that operated from 1999 to 2010. So this Super KKB collides electron of 7 GeV with positron of 4 GeV at a center mass energy of 10.58 GeV. So it produces, from the collision, it produces BB bar meson from Upsilon 4s with a cross section of 1.1 nanobarn. These B mesons are produced in a quantum entangled state. So as we see that the production cross section of CC bar and tau plus tau minus from E plus E minus is of similar cross section as BB bar. Hence, even though we call this as Super B factory, but we also call it as charm and tau factory.
So Meenakshi, what were the major changes when we went to BEL2 from BEL?
You are talking about detector?
Yeah, detector.
Yeah, I'll talk in the next slide. Maybe.
And also the luminosity and the center of mass energy is also different, right?
So center of mass energy is same 10.58 GeV because we are now running on epsilon 4s, but we also plan to collect more data at epsilon 5s, and probably we'll go for epsilon 6s.
Okay. But some components of Bell was used in Bell too, right?
Yeah, exactly. That
Okay.
I'll talk about in my next slides.
Okay, great.
So this Bell2 collaboration has 1,100 researchers from 123 institutions from 26 countries and regions. Okay, so this is the Super KKB luminosity. So Super KKB plan to achieve more than 50 inverse autoburn of data by 2030 to 31. So which is like 50 times more than Bell luminosity and 100 times more than Babar luminosity. So this will be this target will be achieved by increasing the beam current to by 1.5 times than KKB, and by reducing this beam spot size to 20 times smaller than what we had at KKB. So you will have this beam spot size in the vertical direction of about 50 nanometer. So hence we by using this nano beam scheme, so this so we'll reduce the beam spot size to such small size of 50 nanometers. So this will help us to get this 50 times higher luminosity than KKB. So far, despite the
Meenakshi, just for curiosity,
yeah.
so it's very interesting cartoon that you have shown this beam spot.
Yeah.
So basically we achieve this in high energy experiment by focusing the beam with superconducting magnets, or you increase the longitudinal momentum by increasing the boost or something, like, you know, how you narrow the thing basically.
Yeah, so it's mostly because of the focusing superconducting magnet.
Okay, you just focus basically.
Yeah.
But there is no role of longitudinal momentum that you increase that and reduce the transverse momentum so that, you know, things become narrow, like there is something like that, or that is same like as we had in Bell?
No, there is certain changes in the beam parameter, but I don't think that that impact on this luminosity, but that has an impact on the beam background and achieving achieving this center of mass energy, 10.58 GeV. But
okay.
But
so
I'm
basically magnet. You focus by magnets. Okay.
Exactly. It's the magnet.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. So despite this COVID-19, so far we have collected more than 200 inverse femtoburn of data. So still there is a long way to go. But since we target for 15 inverse autoburn, the consequence that we have to pay is we have to deal with more severe beam background condition, and also because of this beam background problem, so we have lowered the boost that provides like we have lowered the boost to beam agent. So previously at Bell we had the boost of 0.43, now it's 0.28. That means the beam agent will fly shorter distance than we had previously. So these two consequence necessitates us to have an upgrade of the Bell 2 detector. So this is the Bell 2 detector. So it sits at the collision point of KKB. It's an asymmetric detector and covers around 4 pi solid angle. So it consists of several sub-detectors. The first important one that sits close to the collision point is the vertex detector, which consists of 2 layers of silicon pixels and 4 layers of silicon strips. These 2 layers of silicon pixel, I mean, the vertex detector is brand new. Earlier at Bell, we have only 3 layers of silicon strip detector. But now we have this brand new detector consists of 2 layers of pixels and 4 layers of silicon strips. So This detector, a vertex detector, will help us to identify the production point and the momentum of the charged particles. Next to the vertex detector, we have the central drift chamber. Again, it is brand new. So it has long lever arm than the previous central drift chamber at Bell. So it's a gaseous detector consisting of helium and methane gas. So this gaseous detector helps to identify the charge tracks and finding their momentum, and also it contributes to the particle identification. Next to it is our particle identification detector that identifies kaon from pion. So in the barrel region, we have time of propagation count chamber, and in the forward end cap we have the aerogel base detector. Again, these two are brand new. So yeah, so these two help us to identifying kaon from pion. And the next to it is our electromagnetic calorimeter, which is cesium iodide doped with thallium iodide crystal. So it is so here we are actually reusing this in Bell electromagnetic calorimeter, but there are several other modification including electronics. And then we have the K-long and mu1 detector, that the outermost detector. So yeah, so we would say that this is a brand new detector. Only the structure and superconducting magnets and the crystals of the calorimeters have been reutilized.
So Meenakshi, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So in this detector that you just mentioned, so is there any hadron? Is there any hardware contribution from our country also? Like,
yeah, exactly. I forgot to mention. Yeah, maybe it's in my backup slide. So out of these 4 layers of silicon strips, the third layer was developed by India. That was led by TIFR. Yeah.
Okay, TIFR group they manufactured in our country and delivered there.
It was manufactured. Actually, it was difficult to manufacture here. That was assembled in Japan. Yeah.
Okay, so we managed to prepare some component, like
yes, from India.
Okay, that third layer of the silicon strip.
Third layer of silicon strips. Yes.
Okay, and as far as the assembly is concerned, also our experimental colleagues played a role from India.
Yes. So it's all done by Indian experimental colleagues. So they go to Japan and like regularly, like takes in shift wise. So they go there and assemble. Everything was done by Indian group.
You are also part of that?
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
So after I graduated, so it started, all these things started.
Okay. And second, so I'm just curious that in this detector, how well you distinguish between electron and a photon?
Yeah, so electron and photon we distinguish from this electromagnetic calorimeter. So, the electromagnetic, for the case of photon, so energy will be deposited in the electromagnetic calorimeter. Electron also will deposit, but it will have a track. So this is the way we differentiate electron from photon, because electron has a track associated with it, but photon only has energy deposition. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So both of them will deposit energy, but electron will give you a track.
Yes, in the inner tracker. Yeah.
But then photon also can give you E plus E minus. No, it will have a Bremsstrahlung number.
So when photon will interact with the electromagnetic calorimeter material, so it will make pair production. What we say, pair production, 2 photon to E plus E minus. Yeah. So it's a material interaction.
But you don't see that track, right? You just see the deposited energy, no?
Yeah. So gradually they will lose all their energy there.
Okay, they will not form a track basically.
No, they will not form a track.
But the electron is also losing energy by emitting photons, right? But they are energetic enough that they can give a track.
Yeah, so electron also, while moving, while passing through the tracker, it is also losing some part of its energy. We say it Bremsstrahlung, but but that's quite small, and we can recover those because that in a solid angle, in a particular angle, so we can recover the energy loss that we say Bremsstrahlung loss.
Recover means reconstruct, right? You can reconstruct.
Exactly.
Okay. Nice. Got it.
Thanks. Shall I go next?
Yes, Meenakshi. Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So now I would move towards my physics interest at BEL 2. So I keep my physics interest broad. So for example, I am interested in charm physics, mostly on the charm mixing and CP violation. And from the side of CK matrix element, I contributed towards this VCB measurement of VCB parameter using early BEL 2 data. And also I'm interested in the measurement of BUB. So VCB is measured from B to D star L nu, BUB is measured from B to pi L nu. So I am also interested in time dependent measurements. Although I have not contributed in the time dependent measurement of alpha, beta or gamma, but I keep my interest on, and whenever I get chance, I'll work on those. And from the hadronic B2 charm side, I did since a long time, since my PhD, I am working on this hadronic B2 charm physics, particularly on this CK angle gamma determination. Recently, I am slowly moving towards this new particle search. So that we say at dark sector or direct search of new particles. So right now I'm working on the search for heavy neutral lepton at BEL and BEL 2 that I'll be talking in my later slides. Anyway, yeah. So in particularly from the precision measurement side, so I'm interested in the measurement of this and that is the measured from the B decays, and also we need information from lattice QCD. I am also interested in this BCD and BCS, which is measured from the charm decays with additional input from lattice QCD, because these two matrix elements are quite important for charm mixing study. And we know that deviation from the CKM picture from the expectation may indicate new physics. So, so what we measure these CKM matrix elements, the magnitude of these matrix elements gives the measurement of branching fraction or mixing frequency, and the phase, the complex phase that appears in for the case of, for example, BUB gives the measurement of CP violation. And I am also interested in standard model for BN process. As I mentioned, I'm working and interested in direct search of new particles. And these are my contribution to BEL 2 flavor in new physics. Yeah. So in my next slides, I'll talk more about this CKM parameter phi 3, then charm mixing in this CP odd mode, and heavy neutral lepton search in tau or tau decay. Okay. Start with direct search. That's the search for heavy neutral lepton in tau decay. So why it is interesting? So because we all know that it allows to solve some of the outstanding problem of the standard model, such as origin of the standard model neutrino mass, non-baryonic dark matter, baryogenesis. So this heavy neutral lepton interacts with the standard model neutrino through mixing. So search for this heavy neutral lepton has been done by various experiments, and the different regions of the mass of heavy neutral lepton has been explored by different experiments. All the experiments provide tight limit on the coupling of E nu and mu nu, but the limit on the tau n coupling is much weaker, which motivates us to study this tau n coupling. And this tau n coupling was only constrained by Delphi experiment, and it is experimentally challenging because it involves tau lepton. So this is we propose the direct search of tau neutrino mixing heavy neutral lepton at BEL or BEL 2, or we should say B factories. So
let's see the previous plot in the previous slide.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So go to previous slide. Yeah. So this limit plot. So yeah, this is the mass of the heavy neutral lepton, right?
Yes. Yes.
And in the y-axis, this is the mixing between the heavy guy and the light active guy, right?
Exactly.
So this is for muon type.
Muon type. Yeah.
But
But
you said that your motivation is the tau type. So
yes, this is
yes.
yeah, this is the projection. This is the limit projection from up to, let's say, 10 GB. So this is this has been achieved by various experiments, but all these experiments provide constraint on the muon type.
Okay.
But the Delphi result, which includes everything, muon, electron, and tau type. So but all other experiments, they have provided constraint only on the muon type or electron type.
It is
So,
just because of the center of mass energy that you have higher center of mass energy.
no, it's okay. So let's, for example, let's say about the Bell experiment. The previous Bell limit was provided using the heavy neutral lepton that is produced from the B decay. So when we have B decay, so for example, let's say B decaying to something, an electron or lepton, then lepton going, muon and electron, and they have a neutrino which mix and decay. So such kind of decays provide constraint on muon and tau. So if we want, muon and electron, if we want to have tau and coupling, then we have to use dedicated tau sample, which has not been used.
So you have the Feynman diagram, like, what process exactly you're talking about?
Yeah, here. Yeah.
Where? Yeah, okay. This is the.
Yeah. Yeah. So for example, we are using E plus E minus to tau plus tau minus sample.
Okay.
So that is collected at, like, we can get at Bell or Babar or Bell 2. So in this case, the tau that is produced from E plus E minus collision, so it decays to a heavy neutral lepton and a, let's say, pion here. So this is a charged current interaction, charged current process. Then heavy neutral, tau decays to a new tau, then mixes with heavy neutral lepton, and then heavy neutral lepton mixes again with new tau, and then decays to, let's say, 2 lepton and new tau, which is a neutral current process.
So what is W star? So you create tau plus tau minus, then they decay to an active neutrino. Now what?
Yes, exactly. Active neutrino.
And okay, some other.
And a pion here. We are considering pion, but we can consider in lepton and the pion pi 0, etc. But lepton case will be challenging because it will have an extra neutrino here. So we cannot reconstruct the mass of heavy neutral lepton. That is produced promptly from the tau.
This is charged lepton you are talking about, right?
Charged lepton, yes, because charged lepton.
So charged
and
lepton.
Neutral lepton, if you say, that will be even challenging, because if we have 2 neutrino, then we'll have 3 neutrino in the final state. So our aim is to reconstruct the mass of the heavy neutral lepton. If there is 3 neutrino in the final state, constraint to solve, to solve the system fully by using this displaced vortex technique and doing the 4 momentum conservation at the tau decay vortex and heavy neutral lepton decay vortex. So after solving this equation, we end up with we get the solution of heavy neutral lepton mass with 2-fold ambiguity. So for example, here I show that we can reconstruct the heavy neutral lepton mass for a generate mass of 1 GeV. For the case of signal, it will peak around the true mass, but in the case of background, it will remain flat. So we can if we can reconstruct the mass of heavy neutral lepton if we see a signal. So so this is the current Delphi limit.
And M1 and M2?
Yeah, M1 and M2 is the solution of mass of heavy neutral lepton with 2-fold ambiguity by solving this.
2-fold ambiguity. Okay, this is not reconstructed an actual mass. No.
Yes, so this is the reconstructed mass, so the true mass that we reconstruct. And since it's a simulation, we know what is the mass we generated, and this is the reconstructed mass.
Okay. So which one is a true mass? M1?
Both are true. Like we generate heavy neutrino with a mass of 1 GeV, and we can reconstruct this 1 GeV mass with two-fold ambiguity. As we see, M1 peaks at 1 and M2 peaks at 1.
Okay. I see.
And this is the E1, E2 is the energy of tau. That includes the heavy neutral lepton energy plus the pion energy. So it peaks at the center of mass energy. Sorry, it peaks at the ECM by 5.279. And for the case of K-long background, which is produced, which is a dominant background for such searches. So it comes from tau decaying to K-long and a pion, and K-long goes to a lepton and a pion. So for this background will remain flat in the M1, M2 phase space.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So is there any bound on this V tau n from Z boson decay branching ratio and study of Z at lab?
Yeah, lab measurement is this one, I guess. Delphi. No, Delphi.
So this is from Z decay or this is from tau study?
No, that's from G decay.
Z decay, right? So
Yeah.
this Delphi is from Z decaying into a N and a tau. N and U. Okay. Z invisible branching ratio.
Yeah. So yeah.
Z decay in lab, right? Z
Yes.
decay, Z not decaying to nu tau and tau. This is what you're saying?
N and nu tau.
N and nu tau. Okay. Okay. N and nu tau. Okay.
And the beauty is here that with Bell statistics, Babar statistics, we can provide an order like 10 an order of magnitude improvement as compared to Delphi, and with the full Bell 2, it will be 2 order of magnitude improvement as compared to Delphi. This is the limit from that we put using Bell and Babar luminosity and with the Bell 2 luminosity.
Bell 2, this is expected, right?
Yes, this is expected. Yes, with
This
Bell
is
2
expected.
statistics and Bell 2 configuration geometry.
Okay.
So yeah, currently I'm doing this analysis at Bell, and I plan to submit this to a physical review later in around spring. Yeah. So now,
just curiosity, Kirtiman, you asked this question. It's a good question. This Mn, we have bounced from LHC, but that Mn is very high, right?
No, actually, I mean, we do not have a stronger bound on this Mn. It depends on this mixing.
Yes, it depends on the mixing. But usually that heavy neutral lepton, we assume in the LHC environment, it's very high, right?
No,
Around
it's
TeV,
very
no?
hard to produce. If the mixing with the active neutron is small, it's very hard to produce. I mean, the cross section is very small at LHC. But if the Z can decay, I mean, if the decay of Z into this heavy neutral lepton is kinematically allowed, then there is a stronger bound from lab, from the measurement of G decay branching ratios.
Okay, so I'm asking that in this parameter space, is there any constraint from LHC also? No.
LHC is not sensitive for such small.
yeah, it's a small mass.
Oh yeah, this is the question. So they are not sensitive.
Yeah.
Say it, Meenakshi, what is your take? What is your take? Say it again.
Yeah, I said that we are sensitive up to 1.6 GeV, whereas LHC can go beyond with up to high masses. So we are our limit is around from, let's say, 0.3 GeV to 1.6 GeV for this case.
So I'm just trying to understand that here LHC can't put any constraint, right?
If they try to put any constant, it will be very loose.
So that means it is complementary to LHC. LHC goes beyond this, and
Yeah.
it probes the other region, higher energy part.
Yeah, they probe the high mass region, we probe the low mass region.
Yes, so there is a complementarity between these two.
Yeah.
The flavor factory and they are these, proton. Okay.
Yes. Shall I move to the next? Yeah. So now,
do you have any other question?
No.
Okay.
So now I move to the next part regarding the precision physics search at Flavor Factory at Bell and Bell 2. So now I start with precision physics physics search. First is the phi 3. I start with the CKM angle. So yeah, so we know that much of the quark flavor physics involves the study of the CKM matrix elements. So CKM matrix is a unitary matrix. So using the unitarity condition, since this is a 3x3 matrix, and using the unitarity condition, we end up with how many 3x3 matrix? Yeah, 12, 9, yeah. Yeah, 12 different relations. Out of those, 6 can be represented as triangles in the complex plane. So one of those triangle is presented in is very interesting because it has the sides are of similar size, and all the angles are physical parameters. So that are closely related to B decays. So yeah, so the area of this triangle shows the amount of CP violation. Yeah, so if you want to measure the measuring the standard model CP violation is measuring the complex phase of this CKM matrix element. So yeah, so measure the complex phase of the CKM matrix elements. It's better to measure this and the angles of these measure these 3 angles of this triangle, because the sides gives the magnitude in the rho eta plane, and the angles gives the complex phase information. Yeah, so this is the definition of those 3 CKM angles, phi 1, phi 2, phi 3, or alpha, beta, gamma, as we see. So out of these, all these 3 out of all these three angles, one of the angle phi 3 is quite interesting because it involves the the matrix element VUB, which contains the complex phase information. So that gives access to measurement of the CP violation. Yeah, so this is the current status of the CKM angles. So this is the current, and this is what we predict from indirect measurements. So if we look at the current status, we see that the uncertainty on this angle phi 3 is still higher than the uncertainty on than that of phi 1. Hence, we need a high precision measurement to constrain the CKM matrix further. So if we find any significant discrepancy between the measured parameters from the expected value, that would be a signature for new physics. So in this slide, I'll talk more about this phi 3 and how we measure. So phi 3 is the only CKM angle that is accessible via tree level decay, and since it is a tree level since it involves only tree level decay, hence it is a standard model benchmark, and it involves very little uncertainty. So if it is precisely measured, can set a very strong constraint on the standard model. So when we compare to the measurement from higher order processes, that means the loop level decays, from the constraint from the loop level decays, if there is new physics, then it will show discrepancy. Yeah, so how we measure phi 3? So the phi 3 is actually the relative phase between this B2U and B2C quark level transition in B2DK decays. So we extract phi 3 by measuring favored decay amplitude B2DK, and from the information of ratio of amplitude, and by knowing the strong phase difference information, we can extract phi 3. And this is extracting the phi 3 information is experimentally difficult because it involves decays with very small branching fraction of the order of 10⁻⁻⁷. hence it is statistically limited. So to measure phi3, there are various steps. First, we need to reconstruct the D in the final states that is accessible to both D0 and D0 bar, which I'll talk in the next slides. And we have to take into account the effects due to charm mixing and charm CP violation. So with the current precision, we ignore these effects, but it should be taken into account for high precision measurement for when we go to high luminosity, and to do such measurements with very high precision, we have to take into account this charm mixing and charm CP violation. And again, it's not only B, but it also so it's not only B to DK, but also B to D star K or DK star. So if we go for different B decays, then we'll have different hadronic factors RB and delta B for each decay channel, which we have to take into account. Yeah, for now I should talk about the D final state. So there are 3 different methods to extract phi3 depending upon D final state. So first is, we say, GLW method, behind the name of the physicists, those who coined this method. So if we take into account if we consider D decaying to CP eigenstates such as KK or and pi pi, which are CP even, or K short pi 0, K short omega, K short eta, or K short phi, which are CP odd. In such cases, we use this method. So here with the B decays to DK and B decays to D0 K minus, or B minus decays to D0 bar K minus, both D0 and D0 bar decays to KK pi pi or K short pi 0 as shown in this Feynman diagram. So for this using this method, we don't need any external charm factor input. The sensitivity depends upon the hadronic parameters, the delta B and RB that I discussed previously. So I contributed towards this measurement by measuring by providing the fast measurement of the CP content of D2 pi 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 0 and D2 KK pi 0. So these 2 channels can be added to this and it can be added to extract the phi3 using this GLW method. Yeah. Another method is the ADS method, where the D from the favored amplitude that is produced from B to D0 K minus, which is favored, decays to a doubly Cabibbo suppressed state, where D0 goes to K plus and pi minus, which is doubly CKM suppressed. So for this case, we need external charm factor input RD and delta D, that is the ratio of D decay branching fraction and the strong phase difference for in D decay. So I contributed towards phi3 using this method, using the decay channel B to decay D to KK pi 0. And there is another method that that is called BPGGSZ method, which involves self-conjugate multibody decays, such as K sort pi pi, K sort KK, or K sort pi 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 0, which is most sensitive to measure phi3. Yeah, so in this case, with the sensitivity to phi3 is measured by comparing the D Delitzsch distribution for B plus and B minus. And while extracting phi3, we also extract the other 2 parameters RB and delta B. Yeah, so this is the phi3 world average value by method and by decay modes. So this is the current world average value of phi3, which has a precision of around 3.5 degree. And recently, for the first time,
this is 1 sigma precision, Meenakshi. This is 1 sigma.
Yes. Yes, 1 sigma.
Okay.
Yes. And next is this. For the first time, we provided extracted phi3 using combined Bell and Bell 2 data sample. So using the decay channel B to DK, D to K short pi pi. So we use the full Bell statistics and the available Bell 2 statistics. And we analyze both D to K short pi pi mode and D to K short KK mode using the method called model independent approach, binned model independent approach. So using better analysis technique, etc., we got improved K-sort pi and K-sort KK yield with the same Bell statistics as compared to the previous result. So we have 40% increase in signal yield as compared to the previous best result from Bell. And we also get additional 17% from by adding the Bell to statistics. Yeah, so this is the current, this is the precision that is achieved from this combined Bell and Bell 2 data. We get pi 3 precision of around 11 degree. And this is also the measurement of RB and delta B that is provided along with phi 3. So this result actually is the most precise to date from the B factory experiment, where we are excluding the results from LSCB. So this is the previous Bell result, which was around 15 degree uncertainty. The precision was of 15 degree. So the statistical uncertainty in phi 3 has been improved from 15 degree to 11 degree due to the improvement in analysis and the K-sort reconstruction. The experimental uncertainty has also improved from 4 degree to 0.5 degree. And also the charm factory also improved their results. So since we take the charm factory inputs, hence that systematic also improved from 4 degree to 1 degree. So with 10 inverse auto-burn, with the uncertainty using this mode will get reduced to 4 degree. Further adding other modes could significantly reduce the uncertainty over phi 3. Yeah.
So the global best fit is 66 degree, right? You mentioned, and that is also in the PDG, I think 66 degree.
Yes.
So that is the combination of all the modes, all
the modes and all the experiments.
Okay. This
LSCB
is
yeah.
So okay, but Bell 2 predicts 73. So it's a huge difference in the.
No, it's not a prediction. This is the measurement. With the Bell data with small Bell 2 data. You know, the uncertainty is quite high. So we cannot really trust on the central value. So when we have a better precision, then we can say something. Yeah. So they have, when they have 6 uncertainty of 3 degree, 3.5 degree.
So this is the so this is the combined. This is not the expected. Go back your previous slide. So this is that you wrote no combined. I think 66 plus minus 3. Previous slide. Yeah. So this is the present scenario, right?
Present scenario, exactly.
Okay.
The world average.
World average. Now, if you go
which does not include the latest result from our Bell plus Bell 2. This result is not included in here. Okay.
So now you are saying that Bell 2, if you go to next slide, you mentioned that from Bell or Bell 2, I think you mentioned a result from Bell. Yeah, this one. So this is already achieved in 2012 from Bell. 77. So this uncertainty is a statistically limited or systematically limited?
Yeah, so this one is statistically limited. Okay. And this is systematic uncertainty, but you know, this systematic uncertainty, it depends upon the external input, charm input. When they improve the result, when we are taking some external input, although it is a systematic uncertainty, that will also get improved.
Mostly it is statistically limited.
Yeah, exactly. Statistically limited. This 15 degree statistical uncertainty.
So is there any merit, like, you know, if Bell 2 can get a value, best fit value close to the world average, then will it reduce the scope of new physics? Like if Bell 2 from its decay mode, the signal that is going to be exhausted by Bell 2, and you have more statistics, suppose say 10 years down the line, and Bell 2 can get an average which is close to the world average, then what it would predict about the BSM, like, you know, that it will close the door.
Let's see. Next slide here. So let's see. So when we do a precision measure, there is a expression from the indirect, as I said in this slide. Sorry. Here, the prediction. So we have a certain prediction, and when we have to make, like after 10 years down the line, when we have a precision measurement, then we'll compare the central value. Let's say it goes to 50 degree, and this is prediction is 65 degree. In such sense, it will open a window to new physics, because the triangle will not be closed.
No, why you are assuming that your world average will also go down? Suppose world average remains same.
No, how come the world average will remain same? Because world average will include the results from BEL 2.
Okay. So then, no, I am saying, will it be possible that BEL 2 gets close individually to the world average value? Because I understand world average means you include BEL 2. But
Include BEL 2 and include all individual measurements.
So is there, will there be a situation where BEL 2 is going to dominate in the world average?
It will be competitive with LSCB, but from the BEL 2 side, the dominant mode that will lead the precision of Phi 3 will be from this channel, K short pi pi and K short KK. But there will be several other modes. When we combine several measurements, then our precision will be even improved. And there will be, of course, single based measurement, and we'll put it like this. Like if there is deviation, it will show somewhere. Like this is, suppose this is the combined measurement, and this is the individual measurement from individual channels.
I see. So definitely then I see that this plot is very interesting, the right one, that it will be important that each experiment reduce their error, so that you trust the world average, because now world average is very shaky, right? It just takes into account all the data and give you some number 66. But individually they fluctuate a lot. So right. This is the
but experimentally we cannot say this is the best, like this is correct, this is wrong. We have to combine everything. But definitely this is but I don't think, I think there is no individual measurement plot, but in future probably people will like to show the individual experiment results, like here.
Out of this, all these modes, what is your mode that favorite, that you trust more, like more, like systematic statistics? Which one mode is the most trusted mode for Phi 3?
The most trusted mode is the mode with charge tracks and which has a higher branching fraction. So for example, this is the most trusted mode. This is the golden mode that we say at Phi 2.
Okay, this is the golden mode. Okay, great.
The golden mode.
Okay, thanks, Meenakshi. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so this is a full picture, the future of Phi 3 precision. So as I mentioned, this is the world average at around 4 degree. So the force in precision of Phi 3 is expected to be order of 1 degree with full BEL 2 data set. So with 15 inverse autobahn, this is how we'll see this rho eta plane with all the parameters, the precision of all these parameters. So it will be very, very precise as compared to the current. The current precision is here, for example. So where it went here, and this is where we'll achieve with 15 inverse autobahn. This is from BEL 2. So currently we provided with the first BEL and BEL 2 combined result for Phi 3, which has an uncertainty of 11 degree. The modes that are interesting at BEL 2 are the neutral modes, which involves pi 0 and gamma. That to make such measurements with neutral modes will be challenging for LSCB. But anyway, BEL 2 will increase the overall precision on Phi 3. There will be competition, cross-checking, and complementarity with LSCB from this Phi 3 measurement side. Shall I move on?
Yes, ma'am, please.
So now I move to another interesting topic on the char mixing side. So I know that neutral particle mixing is quite interesting. If we look at the history, so the observation of C.P. Vaulesson in kaon mixing led to Nobel Prize to these two gentlemen in 1980, and similarly observation of C.P. Vaulesson in 3 generation in quark sector in the observation in B2 C.P. Vaulesson in B2 JEPSI kaon process led to Nobel Prize to Kobayashi and Muscawat in 2008. So even though C.P. Vaulesson in char mixing has been observed, C.P. Vaulesson in char has been observed, but C.P. Vaulesson in char mixing beyond the GIM mechanism will be quite interesting, and hopefully it will provide something new.
There is another candidate. Maybe you discover C.P. Vaulesson in Newton experiment, so you will have another question mark.
Definitely. I should.
Time.
So So why should we study the char mixing? That's a bit, I'll show 1 2 slides motivation. So as we know, the mixing in B to B or D or K neutral mesons, it's a flavor changing neutral current process. And within the standard model, the flavor changing neutral current processor are absent at the tree level. That means in the first order, but they occur in the box diagram, which is second order. The strong suppression of flavor changing neutral current is a consequence of Jim mechanism as proposed by these 3 gentlemen. In the charm system, it's very bit difficult because this process is very this flavor changing neutral current process is strongly suppressed. Because of this VCB parameter, which has very small value. So the magnitude of this is order of 10 to the power minus 8. And there is effective Jim cancellation. The mass of D and mass of A square are nearly similar. And the contribution of mass of B divided by mass of W is very small, unlike the down type quark sector. For the case of B quark, B meson sector, where the mass of top quark is very high, and hence the mixing rate is this flavor changing neutral current process is higher than the charm sector. And in the charm system, since it has medium mass, so long distance contribution are significant, making this prediction very challenging. So it in the charm system, the effect, the standard model effect is very small, and it's a good place to search for new physics. So yeah. So neutral meson oscillation is a phenomenon that occurs for the weakly decaying neutral mesons. Here I show, for example, for the case of K1 system, B system, and D system. So in this case, K1 has a probability to go over time to become K0 bar, and correspondingly, the K0 that remains as K0, the probability is decreased and they oscillate. And if we compare all the 4 cases, we see that in the case of K1, the oscillation happens once in the lifetime, and similarly in the case of B sub D system, but in case of B sub S system, so the oscillation is very fast, so it happens many times in the B lifetime. But in the case of D system, the oscillation is so slow, it's very difficult to observe. So I mean, it's so small that we need a log scale to see it. Yeah, so here is like so it's a little history about the meson mixing. When we first observed the mixing, then B sub B0 mixing, then B sub S mixing, then char mixing, which was observed by Bell and Babar, then where the first evidence was found by Bell and Babar, then observed by LSCB. Yeah, so this mixing is actually parameterized by 2 parameters, mass and width splitting, which is expressed as X and Y. As we see, in the case of D0 case, the mixing parameter value are very small as compared to the other cases. Hence, it's offers sensitivity to non-standard model processes that could contribute to the mixing amplitude by increasing the oscillation rate or by introducing the CP violation effects that are highly suppressed in the standard model. Yeah. So in 1 2 slides, I'll talk about the phenomenology. So as we know that mass and weak eigenstates are, the mass eigenstates are expressed as linear combination of weak eigenstates. So in the case of no CP violation, this normalization Q and P are equal of 1 over root 2. And so the mass eigenstates will be CP eigenstates. So we can express the time evolution of the mass eigenstates like this. And experimentally, we cannot access the mass eigenstates, but the flavor states. So here, for simplicity, we express the flavor eigenstates as a linear combination of mass eigenstates. So if we insert the time evolution of mass eigenstates, the time evolution of flavor states can be expressed like this. And if we take the first order in XY parameter and square and try to find the decay rate for D0 to final state and D0 bar to final state. And then if we add them together, this is the simplified expression we get. And where this YCP is the parameter YCP is expressed in terms of the parameter X and Y. And then parameter AM, which is the CP violation in mixing, and AD is the CP violation in decay, and the phi is the phase factor, which is which needs to be not equal to 0 for the case of indirect CP violation. Yeah. So from this simplified expression, we express the lifetime for the decays in CP eigenstates like this, and the lifetime for flavor specific final states can be written like this. And if we compare these two lifetime, we get this expression YCP, which is experimentally measurable. Yeah. So YCP in CP states has been measured by the first evidence of YCP in CP even states was provided by Bell experiment in 2007 by comparing the lifetime of D0 decaying to KK pi pi with D2 K pi. But measurement of this YCP, CP mixing parameter YCP in CP odd mode was almost neglected. But it is very interesting. These are the reasons why this YCP in CP mode odd mode is interesting. First is measuring YCP from this mixing parameter Y. If we subtract the information, you will get this difference is sensitive to CP violation in mixing and CP violation in decay. Since YCP also depends on the CP violation in decay, so if we compare the CP violation, YCP in the CP even process and YCP from CP odd process, then the difference will be sensitive to the CP violation in decay itself. And hence it is very important to measure YCP in CP odd process. Similar to YCP in CP even processes. So improving the precision of both YCP and Y will might lead the evidence of CP violation in char mixing. Yeah. So this is the CP odd modes and their branching fractions that that I have summarized here. So out of all these 4 channels, this D2 K short pi 0, with even though it has high branching fraction, but since it involves 2 neutral particles in the final state, so we cannot do the time dependent measurements. We cannot find the flight length because we cannot find the decay vertex of D because it has 2 neutral particles. So the other 3 interesting channels are D2 K short omega, phi and eta. However, K short omega has 5 times higher branching fraction than K short phi and 10 times higher branching fraction than K short eta. So previously, only Bell had measured this YCP in CP odd mode using this K short phi. This was the measured value, which is dominated by statistical uncertainty. Which is limited by statistics. For the first time, using this mode, D2 K short omega, I provided the YCP using CP odd mode. I provided the measurement of YCP using the CP odd mode D2 K short omega. This is the world average value of YCP from all experiments that has been done so far. And with this includes my result that was published in 2020 in using the channel D2 K short omega. So this is my result, which is limited by statistics. So I'll talk more about these results in my later slides quickly. Yeah, so I'll go through quickly how I did this analysis. So first is since it is a D decaying to K short omega. So first we need to, yeah.
If you can wrap up in next 5 minutes, is that okay?
Yes, sure. I'll wrap up in next 5 minutes. Yeah.
Great.
Sorry. Yeah. So since we require the charm sample, so to measure this YCP, so first we identify the D mesons from the D star that is produced from E plus E minus to CC bar process in E plus E minus collision. So we deconstruct D star we deconstruct D from D star decaying to D0 and a slope ion. And then from so here is the schematic diagram, E plus E minus collision that produces D star, and D star decays to slope ion and D0, and then D0 decays to K short and omega decays to pi plus pi minus and pi 0 in the final state. So we calculate the D meson proper time T and the uncertainty from the D production and decay vortex and the D moment using this, we calculate the proper time using the information of the decay vortex and production vortex and the D momentum using this expression. And we extract this proper time both for D to K pi mode and D to K short omega, and we extract then lifetime for these two processes from fit to their respective proper time distribution. Then we compare the lifetime of K pi with K short omega to extract this char mixing parameter YCP. So this is more in detail how I identify D from the K short omega with omega to pi 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 0 final state, then how I identify K short and how I identify omega in the 3 sigma omega region, then D star, then make a 2D fit between D mass and delta M, the D mass and the difference between D star and the D mass to find the purity of K short omega and K pi. And then after that, I make a fit decay time to extract the signal lifetime using this expression, and using like using the different resolution function for signal and background, and the whole model is tested using Monte Carlo, and we didn't see any bias in the Monte Carlo level, and then we extract the lifetime for using the Bell data set. This is our extracted K short omega lifetime. This is the extracted K pi lifetime. And by comparing the lifetime, this is the extracted YCP using the Bell data set and using the D to K short omega channel. Yeah, if I look at the prospect of YCP at Bell 2, since Bell 2 will have a very good vortex detector with, as I mentioned, 2-layer pixel, 4-layer silicon strip, and pixel detector stays close to the very close to the interaction point, and with the improved vortex detector, we will have 2 times better resolution, vortex resolution at Bell 2 compared to Bell and Babar. So, and also further improvements includes tracking, K-on identification, calorimetry, all these things will impact. And of course, the luminosity, if we take into account at Bell 2, using the CP odd mode D to K short omega at 15 watts autobahn, I expect to provide a precision of less than 0.1 degree. So if I just take the only the luminosity without taking into account the detector improvement, whereas with the CP even modes, this is what Bell 2 would achieve with 15 watts autobahn, 0.03 degree 3% precision. So it will be a very it will provide very good measurement with 15 watts autobahn statistics. And for the CP odd mode side, I plan to combine other CP odd modes to provide best sensitivity of YCP in CP odd mode. So it will be very challenging for LSCB to measure YCP from CP odd mode because it involves pi 0 and a K short in the final state. So if we compare more precise measurement of YCP with more precise measurement of Y, may reveal new physics effect in the charm system, which is feasible at Bell 2. So big picture. So we know that standard model is very successful, but leaves many unanswered questions. So the Bell 2 experiment at Super KKB aims to probe new physics beyond the standard model with ultimate precision measurement of heavy flavor decays by taking the performance to new level by using 50 times integrated luminosity than previous record in 21st century detector technology. My research at Bell 2 are important to search for new physics in B, charm, and tau decays, and we look forward to new results in physics from Bell 2. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Meenakshi, for covering such a big landscape with Bell and Bell 2. It was really fascinating to see, and whenever you said that this is my contribution, we feel goosebumps. So it's really good that I have this, this PDG in my hand, and I'm so glad that, whatever I say to my students or use me in my class, you have contributed in that. Great. So very nice, very interesting talk. So now the forum is open for questions. I asked many questions, so I will keep aside. And if students or any faculty, if they want to ask questions to you, that will be very nice. So feel free to ask questions. This is the time, especially students, if you have any question.
I have one question.
Yes, sure. Yes, Avnish.
So regarding your this point that this tau reconstruction is experimentally very challenging. So I work in LHC and I see there are certain experimental limitations. So what are the limitations in your this Bell experiment specific regarding this tau sector?
The limitation. So the limitation part. Well, so in the tau sector, I don't see that B factor is as limited as compared to LHC.
No. I mean, regarding this LHC, in a tau sector, we are constrained by this low energy. We cannot go into low energy regime below 40 GeV. So our approximation, collinear approximation comes into picture, and we cannot reconstruct the final states with very precision. So what if I go for, suppose if I am going for some dark sector search in through portal of tau, so what kind of constraint, experimental limitation I will face?
So the experimental limitation that quickly comes to my mind is that we cannot go for high mass. We are limited up to the center of mass energy of 10.58 GeV, but that's the maximum. But it is not like one new particle will be produced, nothing else. Some associated particle will be there. So that will take some part of the 4 momentum. So we'll be limited around 5 GeV, let's say.
Okay, that's understandable.
And if we are looking at the tau decay, again, we will be limited up to 1.6 GeV mass. That's the mass below the tau or tau mass.
Yeah,
that so a lot of test space already gone to create tau itself, right?
Yes.
In your case, right?
Yeah.
Because it is almost 1.73 GeV. You need the mass. So yeah. I think after 4 or 5 GeV, you start producing tau, right? Effectively, you want to see the tau, right? Am I correct, Meenakshi? Like to produce tau and to see something out of tau.
Yeah.
What is the threshold? Like
yeah. So to produce, so first of all, we produce tau E plus E minus to tau. So right. The tau mass is 1.76. I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. Like so when we have tau of mass 1.76, we cannot produce a particle that is above the mass of tau because of 4 momentum conservation. So there will be some associated particle. Let's say the minimum associated particle will be, let's say, pion. So it will carry around a mass of 140 MeV. So we can at most sensitive up to 1.6 GeV, not more than that, for a new particle that is produced in tau.
Say it again, Meenakshi. What was your answer? So
I say that in tau decay, if we have a new particle and an associated, there will be definitely an associated particle. So that if we consider the associated particle, that's the pion, that's the lowest mass, pi meson, which has a mass of around 140 MeV. So it will take some part of the 4 momentum. So we can be sensitive up to 1.6 GeV, as I said, showed in the case of heavy neutral lepton. So similar scenario in other cases.
So only you are saying center of mass energy is the limitation, but no other limitation you can think of, right? Otherwise, it is very clean.
Yeah, otherwise E plus E minus basin is very clean. And of course, our cross section is small in the nano-1 range because we are colliding E plus E minus. So the cross section is small as compared to LSC experiments.
Avnish, you had something in mind, like, like when you ask this, like you can say some advantage.
Thing I can say that you have a big detector. We have a small detector. The flight distance will be smaller because we are limited by the geometry of our experiment, by the tracker. The tracker which will track the flight length of this the long-lived particle is limited. Whereas in case of big detectors, they have bigger trackers, and the long-lived particle can travel longer distance.
I had just in mind that what these small this bell is with a small center of mass energy, so it can cover the this lower energy portion in complementarity to the LHC searches with the lower energy side. So
Right.
LHC cannot go below 40 GeV for this tau searches. There,
Yes.
this collinear approximation comes into picture, and we cannot reconstruct very precisely with full confidence, I think. So I was expecting that we can make some better results out of this experimental set.
Yeah, and from the Bell2 side, we are limited by statistics, I would say. So yeah.
What was the limit, Avnish, you said in LHC for tau, lower limit?
Around 40 GeV.
40 GeV, 40.
Yeah, below 40 GeV, we can not very precisely make this tau decay into other parts.
It would have been nice to have Arun here. I think Arun works on the tau, right? So you say that means from 10 to 40 there is a gap, and there is no experiment which can fill up that gap, right? It is interesting.
I think that's an interesting region. Is there anything? Maybe new physics can enter that region.
I should not say uninteresting, but we need to cover the entire parameter space. So it seems to me from this discussion that from 10 to 40, I don't know whether there is anybody or any experiment. I don't know. The FASR-NEW in LHC, now they are talking about, some facility, in LHC, the fixed target experiments. This is called FASR-NEW. I don't have know the details, but I need to check that. But I would love to know whether we can cover this, because third generation is very important, because we have less constraints on this family, right? The third generation, when we talk about tau. So you have more, possibility to accommodate new physics there, because constraints are typically less stringent compared to the first two generation, electron and muon. So it is interesting. And now there are a lot of discussion even with new tau, because now there are so many neutrino facilities. So people are trying to understand probing BSM or standard 3-flavor neutrino physics with new tau. Okay, that whether you can have a tau decay, because if you have a new tau, it produces tau. Then from tau decay, can you say something about this new tau? Okay, and there are many things you can do. So there are a lot of interest. But it is interesting that it seems to me that from 10 to 40 GeV, there is no candidate. Maybe I am wrong or missing something. Maybe Avnish, you can dig it up and tell us, if 10 to 40 GeV is a desert, like, nobody has probed or can probe.
Maybe there are some, this upgradation is being carried out. So this is experimental means facility gap. So maybe in the next upgradation of LHC and CMS Atlas, they will make their detectors more precise. So
this plot that Meenakshi showed, this Mn versus U, that is a very well-known plot. Heavy neutral lepton, one its mass and coupling. So maybe we can see in the literature. There are many review papers also. One is by Tao Han and company. So whether they have any plot where they can show a bound between 10 to 40. We are talking about the heavy neutral lepton mass, right? Between 10 to 40. Is that correct?
Yes.
Um,
10 to 40, yes.
Yeah.
Lepton.
Yeah. So in that range, if we have constants, I know you are talking about tau, but if we want to relate that with some new physics, and in this kind of scenario, interesting. We need to see. We need to check the literature. I'm not familiar.
yeah, I'll check and get back to you via email.
Yeah. That will be nice. That will be really nice.
Meenakshi ma'am, I have another question. You might give some overview how we can more precisely, specifically go for this dark matter detection from this gel experiment. Might just give broad idea how we can utilize your facility.
Yeah, so for example, dark sector searches, people do search on dark photon, even though we have not published yet at Bell 2, but the people are working on it, dark photon search, where they work on like E plus E minus gives to initial state radiation gamma, and then a virtual photon which gives rise to dark photon. So by identifying this initial state radiation so using this ISR photon, so people search for this dark photon, but I do not know in detail how they do, but that is one part. And there is something, a jet prime search, you probably you might be knowing that Bell 2 recently published. And then axion-like particle search that is produced from E plus E minus collision with 3 photon in the final state. That is where the axion like E plus E minus goes to photon and axion goes to 2 gamma. So there is no missing particle here. We can directly reconstruct the axion mass from the 2 photon final state invariant mass, from the 2 photon invariant mass. And there are several other things going on. There are several plans.
Yeah, thanks for this information. So I think it will be good start to look into those areas. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah, Abnish, you have any question, you can write to her. You can just Google and see her email address, or I have his email address. So
yeah, sure, we will be in touch.
Yeah, actually, Meenakshi Avnish is a finishing PhD student. He will be finishing soon, and he works on LHC with Kirtiman. So he's a very good student, and it would be nice to have exposure if he gets exposure and suggestions in future direction.
Definitely, I'll be very happy.
Right. So
thank you, ma'am.
Any other question? If we have any other question for Meenakshi? So I don't see any hands. So great, Meenakshi. It was really good that things are not looking good, but you connected and talked for us for 1.5 hours. And it is always very nice feeling, because we work on mostly neutrinos and dark matter. We know the literature, but we directly don't work on B physics. So somebody, when you told us about all these things, some previous memories and some new developments we can see. So it would be nice, if things will be okay, you can come and visit us. How long will you be here in India?
I'll be in India for around 1 month. Yeah.
So next February, till February you are here.
Yes.
Okay. So please be in touch, and if things will look okay, then you can physically come and meet with our people here, students and faculties. And if next time you come, take some more time, write to us in advance. And why don't you give some lectures, blackboard lectures for us?
Definitely, I'll be happy. I'll be very happy. I'm looking for opportunity.
We will all, learn from you, because, we have forgotten many things, and we would like to know in detail. Like, you covered so many things, and I didn't dare to ask many questions. I have already asked too many. So maybe people will be frustrated. So please, keep in mind and write to us. And I would like to thank from all of us that you connected today, gave this talk, and looking forward for your achievements in future. Keep us updated, and good luck with your data analysis and future goals in BEL 2. We are proud of you that you are doing such a great job.
Oh, thank you
thanks a
so
lot,
much.
Meenakshi.
Means a lot to me.
Keep up. Yes, keep up.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Take care, Meenakshi. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And share your slides. You send a copy of your talk to us and we'll post in our social media handles.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Bye.